Introduce our next speaker, Dr. Lisa Coyne, who was on the coping skills panel earlier, so you got a little bit of an introduction to her already. She is one of the leading experts in ACT with children. And so she was my first choice in the whole wide world for a speaker for social skills in NF, and so hopefully you will enjoy her talk. Thank you.
So no pressure, of course. So now I'm having the thought that I'm going to screw this all up because I'm supposed to be good at it, and certainly I'm not. And just to share with you a conversation that Stacy and I had last night, and she said, "You're going to be talking about social skills." And I said, "But Stacy, I have no social skills." And she said, "That's okay. You don't have to have them to teach them." So anyway, it's really lovely to be here, and I think that this is an amazing group, and I love the work. It's really important that Stacy is doing, and I hope that some of you do contact her and get involved and tell your friends with children, tell them to get checked out and see if they can participate in this work. I think it's really good. So I'm going to extend and continue talking about how we can employ an acceptance-based approach to fostering social development. And in particular, I thought I'd focus a little bit on some of the more difficult things that occur for children during social development. So you can go ahead and, oh, do I flip the slides? Oh, yay. All right, I'm definitely gonna mess this up, I promise. Okay. So just to kind of think about some of the social developmental issues that kids with NF may experience. This is just based on a brief review of some of the literature that's out there, okay? So they do, sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's hard for all of us to learn different social skills and things like that. And it's not entirely clear if some of these things are due to differences in cognitive functioning or other conditions like ADHD, which I have too, so just FYI. If I forget what I'm saying, that's why. What we do know also is that kids with NF tend to have really good self-concepts. So it's consistent with some of the stuff you heard earlier on the social skills panels, that kids are actually doing pretty well, even if we as parents worry about them a lot, okay? They are very sensitive, which is a beautiful quality, and sometimes they're perceived by peers as less likely to have roles as lead or to take roles as leaders. Not to say that they can't, but sometimes they don't. Like many kids who are struggling with chronic health conditions, they may be more socially isolated. So that is something, as a parent, that I know is very, very hard to watch. And older children, interestingly, tend to be rated as more depressed than younger children. So this gives us kind of a picture. And I want you to just kind of notice what you're feeling as you kind of listen to these words and look at these words and what I've said. And now I want to show you something else, okay? So we can play the video now. Okay. So I don't know if you know who that is, but that's Kid President. And if you don't know him, you should get to know him. And one of the things that you should know about Kid President is that he has osteogenesis imperfecta. And if you don't know what that is, it is the brittle bone disorder. So by the time he was, I think, 8 or 10, he had over 72 broken bones. Yeah, he's a pretty inspiring little guy. And I'm struck by his message. So we just talked all about social skills deficits, and you had a lot of thoughts about that. What if the thoughts that you had were, we're made to be awesome, and your kids are made to be awesome? And what if it's possible to make the world a better place for each other through what you do, okay? So ACT, as Stacy described, and for those of you who just walked in, it's called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And really simply, what it's about is accepting your experience as it is, especially those things that you cannot change. Connecting with the things that are most important to you in your life, or helping your kids connect to those things which are most important to them. And taking action, not thinking about it, but taking action. And we call that valuing. So it's connecting, accepting, connecting, and doing what matters. And that's the valuing piece of ACT. Okay? So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was something that many kids experience, and maybe your children in particular. Okay? Something that shows up for a lot of our kids. And I feel like, I don't know, but I feel like in recent years, this has gotten even worse with social media and all sorts of, so many more venues to be cruel to each other. And I want to tell you this. Stacy talked about chronic pain, but there was a study by a man named Kip Williams on ostracism. And he did a little test where he had kids walk into a room. They were told they were going to play an online game with 2 other people, and it was a game of catch. And basically, the kids played catch. You hit a button, and you throw the ball to someone. They throw the ball to each other. They throw the ball to you, and it's all great. Except, after about 2 minutes, the online players, which really weren't real at all, stopped throwing the ball to you. And within a few minutes after that, across many studies, you would see changes in emotion regulation. People would get very upset. They had videos of some of the responses. People would yell, or they would look sad, they would look down. And here's a really interesting thing. Did you know when we are ostracized by others, it actually lights up the same center, the same part of your brain that experiences physical pain? So what that means is that your brain can't necessarily distinguish between physical pain and emotional pain. So just take that in for a second, okay? There's a reason for this, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so just a quick description. I think it's really important that when you are talking with your kids and when they're coming home from school, that they understand actually what's not okay, you know, and one of the things, of course, is physical aggression. This is one we talk about maybe less, and it doesn't just happen with girls, but ostracism. And of course, this, which is the newest form. But there are other things that happen that are also not okay. Being a bystander, watching, and standing back. And it's really tough for a lot of kids to step in and say, no, that's not okay. Or go get a teacher for help. Or get a friend to help. So who does get bullied? 1 in 5 kids, 20% of children, physically. It's higher in kids with disabilities and with chronic illnesses. What was that? It's included, but it's also separate. So I'm sure that that's a community sample of kids. And then this is specific kids with disabilities, 1 to 4. 1 in 2 kids, half, are bullied with words or with ostracism. 1 in 10 kids are bullied on the internet. Boys act somewhat differently than girls. Boys may be more physically aggressive. They may be less likely to tell you what's happening. Girls may say more. They may express more negative emotions like sadness, feeling left out. And parents can help. Okay? So this is something that we can teach our kids to do when they see this, because it may not always be that they are targets, but they may also see it. So grouping together and standing up for your friends is one. And here's another one, okay? So, you know that saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me? You believe that? Yeah, me neither. Okay. So sometimes when kids are bullied, we can't always control the social situation for them. I have a lot of kids coming to me and saying, who are bullied, they may struggle with anxiety or depression, they may struggle with chronic illness. And I say, well, if we could really fix the situation, what would happen? What would be better? And they say, I want the bullies to stop. I just want them to leave me alone. And here's the thing. You can't necessarily stop the bullies, but you can teach kids how to cope with that when it's happening. All right? So I want you to think about this. When kids experience social ostracism, there's the actual piece of it, but then there's this other piece. I know, as a kid who was bullied for being small and pasty and kind of rowdy, that I had all sorts of thoughts about who I was based on that I wasn't any good, that I wasn't very smart, that nobody would ever like me, that everyone else had friends and I didn't, that I had to work really hard to get friends, but it didn't work. All of that, all of those are thoughts that we have in our minds. And kids who are ostracized or bullied will have those same kinds of thoughts. But here's the thing. Our minds talk to us all the time, right? And this is actually how I would say it to kids. Is, wow, my mind is telling me that kid's really mean, or that kid really doesn't like me, or I just can't ask for a play date because I know they'll say no, right? My mind is telling me these things. But if you had a friend who spoke to you the same way our mind talks to us, would you keep them? Okay. So I'm going to teach you something that you can teach your kids. And I want to show it to you how it works, okay? Because we do experience our thoughts as real truths. And we can be mindful of the present moment, but we can also be mindful of our thoughts. So if you're willing, I want you to try a little experiment with me and just notice what happens. Are you ready? You guys willing? Okay. Don't say anything, but I want you to think about kind of an ugly, maybe self-critical thought you might have about yourself. Maybe one that you really don't want people to know. Okay? Like, mine is, I don't know, I have so many. I could pick one. I feel really stupid. That's a good one. How about that one? My mind says I'm feeling really stupid. Okay. So I want you to notice that thought, and I want you for 5 seconds to just think that thought as though it were true. Just kind of have that thought. I'm stupid. I'm unlovable. I'm not very good at X, whatever. Just for 5 seconds. Now what I want you to do is to add to the front of that thought, I'm having the thought that I'm stupid for me. And just say that slowly in your mind for about 5 seconds. Good work. And now I want you to add something else. I notice I'm having the thought, and now say that to yourself. 5 seconds. Finally, do this last one. I'm aware that I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that I'm X. And just say that. Whatever it is. So what did you notice? Huh? She forgot her thought. That's awesome. You may have noticed that you got a little distance from that thought, and you might have noticed that it started to kind of lose its bite just a little bit. Isn't that interesting? Because when we have negative or hurtful or sad or self-evaluative thoughts, right, we tend to just, I don't want to think about that. I'm going to ignore, I'm going to distract, I'm going to go do something else. Or we argue with them, oh, it's true, it's not true, it's not, and we work really hard on it. All of those things, that pushing away of those thoughts that you don't like, that's called experiential avoidance. But here's the crazy thing. You guys just actually thought that thought for, 20 seconds? You let yourself have it, you played around with it, you added some words to it, and you got a little distance from it. In ACT, we call that diffusion. And what it means is exactly what Stacy was talking about, creating that distance between the thinker and the thought. Creating that distance between the thought of, say, I'm having pain and I can't do that, and going to bed, right? That's how we do that in ACT. You guys can teach your kids to do it, and you can practice it yourself too. Many days, especially the hard ones, I'm walking around going, I'm having the thought that this isn't going very well, But it's really interesting, because when I start to feel really tense and stressed out, I notice it's because I'm really fighting with the thoughts in my mind, and I'm not really being mindful in the moment. But when I do that, when I notice that, that's my cue to come back, be in the present moment, and just notice I'm having thoughts, and I'm struggling with them. So there's a really beautiful saying by a woman named Tara Brach. She's a Buddhist psychologist. She's really lovely, and she actually deals with some chronic pain issues herself. And she says that suffering begins the moment we start wishing the present moment is other than what it is. Just think about that for a second. Because there are different ways you can move through your lives. There are different ways your kids can move through their lives. And if we spend a lot of energy wishing for something different, we lose our power to act in the present moment. So, with that, I actually want to see if we could do another little mindfulness exercise and just take a moment to see if we could focus, not on our breath, but we'll focus on something else, okay? So if you're willing, what I'd like you to do is just close your eyes. I'll do it with you, so if I look funny, that's why. Take a few deep breaths, and just take a moment to notice where you are right now in this room with all of these people, people with NF, family members, friends, loved ones, fellow travelers all, and just take a moment to notice that you're sitting in a room full of people with a very common purpose that bind them together. And just notice what that feels like. And breathe while you do it. And take a moment to notice what it was that brought you here this weekend. What was it? You had to do a lot to get here. Probably financial, planning, arranging childcare, all of the logistical things, maybe saying no to other things, moving things around. There was something really important that you wanted to get from this forum with these people this weekend. And I want you to just take a moment to touch that. If this forum, if this weekend were a really powerful, meaningful event for you, what would you be willing to do? Now you can open your eyes. Were you guys able to touch something important? Yeah. Okay. We'll skip that one. So here's another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the development of social skills and our social worlds, more importantly. What is the opposite of bullying? If we can't fix the bullies, what can we do? And one thing we can do is engage in acts of kindness, acts of gratitude. And there is a really nice literature developing that when you engage in gratitude, when you engage in kindness, it increases the positive emotions that you might feel. You might be more effective in your behavior. You might be more engaged in your life. And this is data from children and adults. Okay, so the 3 parts of kindness are this. Mindfully noticing when others around you are sad or left out. This is something you guys can practice here. You know, if you see people by themselves, right? You can model this for your kids. You can teach your kids to do this too. Notice. And notice that everyone you meet has a story. You may not know it, but everyone you meet is struggling with something. I'm struggling with the pointer. So this is a picture from a few years ago of, we did a walk for hunger in Boston. It was a 20-mile walk, and I did it with my daughter and her friends. It was their idea. Sharing sadness and sharing pain with others is a really important piece of kindness and compassion. And they did this really amazing thing. First of all, I was a real dummy because I thought I could walk 20 miles without ever having done that before. And let me tell you, that was a really bad idea. Really bad idea. And at about mile 19, I really honestly, like my hips felt like there were gravel in the hip joints walking. It was really painful and really hard, and the kids were noticing that I was really hurting. They were also hurting. I didn't know that because they all looked happy. And they started, Mrs. Coyne, are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. I said, actually, it really hurts. And I made a commitment to them that I would finish because they really wanted to finish. I made a commitment, and I was going to do it no matter what. And so I'm there, and I'm limping, and it's like, get harder and harder. And they're, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not okay, and I'm going to keep going. I am not okay, and I'll keep walking. And you know what happened? They started to say, actually, I really hurt too. But let's keep going, and let's keep going. And this is them at the finish line. So they understood 2 things. One was that this was a shared experience. And the other one was that you can carry your pain with you and you can do those things that you care about. So this is the 3rd piece of kindness. Recognizing that it's the broken pieces in us that connect us together. Think about your best friends. Think about the people you love most. Is there anybody you know who doesn't have some part of themselves that they're maybe not so willing to accept or that they don't like? What if we made a space for that? Right? So this is the 3rd piece of kindness. Know that everyone does dumb stuff. It does connect us together. And so here's the kind of last piece I wanted to talk a little bit about. What do you feel like when you do a random act of kindness for someone else? We talked about it a lot this morning in that really, really gorgeous, gorgeous keynote. Right? What if that was something that was empowering? And what if, even though it was one small thing, that it made a difference for that person? You know the story of the starfish? There was a man walking along the beach, and he came across a little boy who was standing, and there were a whole bunch of starfish that had washed up on the beach. And he was going through looking at them, and one by one he was throwing them back in the ocean. There were thousands of them. I don't know what happened, some sort of global warming climate change thing. And the man looked at him and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm putting the starfish back in the water." And the guy said, "But look at how many there are. That's not going to make a difference." And so the little kid bent down, picked up another one, tossed it, and he said, "I made a difference to that one." So, what if it's possible that when you engage in acts of kindness, right, or your kids engage in acts of kindness, that creates a cascade of behavior which causes other people to be kind? There's actually some data on this. It's really neat. And clearly I don't have that slide on it. But there's some data by folks up at Harvard, Fowler and Christakis, that actually did a really nice experimental study where they had people engage in a cooperative game, and what they found was that when people engaged in cooperative acts, pro-social acts, with the people around them, those people in turn were more likely to engage in pro-social acts, and then those people in turn were more likely to engage in pro-social acts. Isn't that cool? So it's kind of like ripples in a lake. One starfish can cause a revolution. Okay? Take a few moments to sum up. Your kids can be the architects of their worlds. You can help. There will be thoughts. There will be real things that get in the way, real adversity, pain, bullies. And there will be thoughts and feelings that get in the way. What if it's possible that they could, just like our speaker this morning, make an enormous difference in the world, not just for themselves, but for each other? Because it is possible. So learning to get some distance from our thoughts so that they don't bully us. Learning to connect with the things that we really care about, that matter. And making a commitment to do those things, even in the face of adversity. Those are the 3 ingredients of ACT. So I want to end to show you one of my favorite little stories. I came across this a few years ago. And it's from a story in a San Francisco newspaper about a humpback whale that these folks came across, and she was drowning because she has been so tangled up in fishing line and things like that. It was weighing her down. She couldn't surface for air. So these folks, told this Coast Guard shot out and were trying to help her, and they couldn't get the stuff off her unless they got in the water, which they did. And very slowly they were able to free her from her bonds. And this is what happened. Isn't that gorgeous? So my wish for you guys is that if you have words that you're struggling with about you, about your kids, that are holding you back, that you can get some freedom from those and know that you can be powerful actors in your own world, as can your kids, who can be brave and be kind. And I'll leave you with a little poem from Kid President. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of small. I can't even see it. So I'll just read it real quick. He says, keep going, keep going, keep going. The world is so big, and we're all so small. Sometimes it feels like we can't do anything at all. But the world can be better in spite of its flaws. The world can be better, and you'll be the cause. Even though the waves are bigger than our boats, the wind keeps us sailing. Its love gives us hope. Some days it's dark, but we'll keep on rowing because people like you whisper, keep going, keep going, keep going. So, Kid President, there you go. What will you do to make the world more awesome? And I'll just end. This is my crazy family. And I am the only one that can't do that nose trick with the... All the kids yesterday were like, I can do that. And I was like, well, I can't. So I'll end with that. Thank you. Have a really great weekend.